Hey, Jeff from OMG Leatherworks again, and today we're going to talk about determining what quality leather looks like and how to go shopping for good leather. And when you can't shop for leather, what you're going to be asking for from the guy at the shop to help you pick it out and send it to you. So stick around, we'll be right back. All right, so we are going to talk about leather quality. What do we mean when we talk about quality of leather? Well, there's a couple of things, and again, it really depends on how you intend to use it. But the actual hide of an animal is pretty thick that we get leather off of. And depending on the part of the animal that it comes from, the shoulders, the back, the sides, the belly, the butt, determines what a lot of this is going to mean. So, for instance, near the outside of the skin, towards the hair, if you just take the hair off, the fibers of the skin are very tightly woven together. They're really tight and vertical. The farther you go down towards the inside of the animal, the more those fibers will lay out and spread apart and actually become what I would call at that point weaker. So, the manufacturer at a tannery of your leather will, in instances, cut that into layers depending on where it is and then sell them as different qualities. So they'll sell the outside, the full grain leather, as probably the most expensive and do the most expensive tanning processes to those layers. So layers will be typically near the outside. You'll have your full grain, and then you'll see top grain leather, which would be the layer under that. And then you might see genuine leather, which is even further in towards the animal. And then at that point, you might start getting suedes and raw hides, different kinds of layers along those lines. And again, they all come from the same skin. It's just a matter of the layers are different and the tanning process will vary based on that, and then your usage. So I'm going to show you some examples of some what I call low quality leather and some high quality leathers and help you make your decisions a little easier. All right, so leather quality. Let's talk about a couple of different things, and first we're going to start with a high quality leather. So, for instance, this piece here, this roll is an English bridle. This one happens to come from Wickett & Craig, and it's been refinished on the back. So when I say refinished on the back, this one it's really smooth. It's a consistent thickness. This was split down to 2-ounce leather. Really good for high quality wallets. You'll be looking for, in most instances, the quality of the back of the leather. And that's what will give you an indication of what's kind of inside the leather. As you can see, this is very consistent. There are a few grain lines here and there. You know, it is a skin after all. It's an organic product. It's not going to be absolutely perfectly consistent. There are going to be some variations. And for instance, I'll bring another one over, which is also a Wickett & Craig leather. This is harness leather, and as you can see, it has a much more highly reflective surface to it. It's roughly the same process. There's a little more oils and waxes in this. You can look up the differences between English bridle finishing and harness leather finishing. But if you look at the back, I also had this one refinished, and this is how the back comes out on this piece. Somewhat similar, I also use it in the same high quality wallet leather. but there's just a difference of how they're going to age, a difference how they feel, a difference in finishing techniques between English bridle and harness leather. But these both came from the same place, and I would use them in high quality projects. If I didn't have the backs of these refinished with, it's basically a color issue. If I didn't have them refinished, they would look like a standard veg tan undyed on the back. So let's talk about this one, this piece. This is a 3-ounce leather from Herman Oak, and it's very smooth on the back again, with the same type of grain lines. Now, when you look at the fronts of these types of leather, of this piece of leather, this is good quality. All right, this is a higher quality piece. It's very smooth. There are very few interruptions. There's no brands. There's no bug bites. There's no scratches from where the animal might have rubbed up against the barbed wire fence. And again, this is for very consistent field use. Now, so let's bring up just a couple more examples here. And this isn't necessarily to show you, oh, look, Jeff's got all this high fancy leather. I've got a few nasty pieces in here too, and we're going to show you those in just a minute. But here would be an example of another piece of veg tan leather, and this one I would call lower quality. So on the front, you're going to see there's bug bites to the point where it's actually, you know, now this is a fairly thin piece of leather, okay? So we're still talking 2 to 3 ounce. And we've got bug bites deep enough to go all the way through it. You can see color all the way through them. There is some staining. If you look, there's wrinkles here and there. There are thin spots, and there's thin spots throughout this leather. Now, if you're doing small work, you can work around these and cut around them. And again, if you really like character in your pieces, this may be what you're looking for. Exactly. Now, also, when you dye this leather, you can kind of see throughout it that the thickness changes as it goes from one area to the other. You can feel that. You can see the thin spots. You got the bug bites and the scratches. So if you were using this as just a natural piece of leather in your finished product and maybe waxing it or oiling it, it would take on a very rustic style look. Whereas if you were to dye it, maybe try to dye this black or dark brown, it might turn out what I would call splotchy or in waves or something like that. Now we flip it over and we look at the back, okay? Now, here on the back, yes, this is near an edge, okay? And, you know, there are clip marks here where they did the stretching. But if you look at this, this is an indication of a fairly loose grain, where it's not nearly as smooth and tight as it was when you compare it against this Herman Oak piece. And that loose grain will frustrate you, because when you cut through that area, or if you're trying to burnish an edge on there, it'll just keep flopping around. It'll actually, when you start oiling this or dyeing it, it will act more like what I would call, you know, damp dish rag syndrome, rather than burnishing up nicely like a good hard leather. It's when you're burnishing an edge on a leather project and it gets that really nice shiny look to it and takes a burnishing really well with a little wax or a little saddle soap or something along those lines, and it gets that really hard shiny edge to it. That's because those fibers are just joining together so well that, and laying down together, that they're almost impenetrable. When you have this kind of material, and you go to burnish that edge. If it's made out of all this, it'll just kind of flop around. It won't join together, and it'll be frustrating. It won't look very nice, to tell you the honest truth. But again, this type of leather has its place. You know, it works really well for linings if you're gluing it face to face with another nice piece or something along those lines. This is great practice leather too, so don't be afraid to get the cheap stuff sometimes and work with it. And again, you never know when that customer is going to ask you for a custom project that has a little bit of extra character to it, or a brand or something along those lines. Now, this is English bridle again. We covered some veg tan, natural leather. This is a thicker piece. Okay, it's definitely thicker. I would say this is probably a good 12 to 16 ounce, maybe 14 ounce. Now, if you see, it's really wrinkled on the top. Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard for the camera to pick this up, but it's wrinkled on the top. The back is fairly loose. Okay, this was probably from a shoulder. And where the shoulders are, you're going to get more fat deposits, so you're going to get a little of this naturally. But also, if you look at the layers, you can actually see where the layers of the leather are. You want more of a consistent piece all the way through, so I would call this a lower quality piece. Okay, so you'll want to look at the edge, and as you can see, there's a light layer and then a dark layer and another light layer. Now, that doesn't mean it was sandwiched together like plywood, but that maybe the tanning oils didn't penetrate all the way through when they were tanning this piece of leather. And therefore, it kind of comes out as a lower quality piece. Some other things I just wanted to show you here would be, okay, now this piece, this is what I would call a very high quality leather. This is an oil tanned piece. It's very, very easy to manipulate, very soft. It also has, if you look, I'm bending this right here. When you release it, you still see the lines of how it moves and how it bends. They call this pull-up. So this has a good, strong pull-up when you get that kind of look to it. And you can take a brush and brush that right back out. And it's very soft. The back is very consistent. Okay? The thing about an oil tanned leather like this is you can't use it for stamping. You can't carve into this. You can't burnish the edges. All right? It's already done. This is what you get. So if you're going to use this type of leather, be prepared to, if you want to do something nice, different to your edges, you're going to wind up painting your edges. You might want to take a veg tanned leather like this and fold it around your edges, and you can burnish that or use it in multiple layers. But you know, for making bags and other things that are going to, like backpacks and bags and purses, this is a beautiful piece of leather to do that with. Okay, but you just need to know, you have to have a plan of what you're looking for when you go in and look for leather. Okay, have your finished piece in mind when you're shopping for something specific. All right, so again, I'm going to show you a couple little quick pieces of what I would call low-grade leather. Now, these came out of a remnant bag that probably came out of someplace along the lines of Hobby Lobby and such. And these are just edge scraps. You can tell, you know, after you've been doing this for a while, and you can tell, oh, these were cut-offs. These were the edges. So the reason I'm calling these lower quality pieces is because, again, these are chrome tanned. Chrome tanning is not necessarily a lower quality of tanning than vegetable tanning. It's just different and has different uses. Again, these won't burnish up on the edges. These pieces have looser backs to them, very grainy here. But, you know, it had a thin spot over here, which has left a hole. It's a very grainy back, okay, which makes it weaker, for one thing. And you can't really do much to the edges on here. And if you look at it, it's got multiple layers. You know, a light layer, a dark layer, a light layer, and that's from their dyeing process. But this is also a piece that was just a cutoff of something else. It has a lot of wrinkles to it. It feels thinner in the center than it does on the edges. And that's something you can definitely feel when you go and look at your leather or have somebody else pick it out for you at the factory is, hey, I'm looking for 4 or 5 ounce leather. Does it, you know, I don't want something that's really thin on one end and then really thick on the other end, because, you know, that's fine if you're doing a variety of projects with that same hide, but if you're looking to do one thing with one hide, then you're not going to get the consistency that you were looking for in the first place. This is roughly the same thing. Now the back on this is a little tighter than the white piece we just looked at. But again, this came out of a remnant bag. It's really torn up here on the top. Thin spots, inconsistent look. You can't really dye these. They are what they are. So again, it's not like veg tanned. They come out, they're dyed at the factory, and they are what they are, pretty much. So that should give you some idea of what we're looking at when we talk about high quality leathers versus not so high quality when you go shopping. Okay, so we've talked about a few different things, such as where you'll source your leather, what kind of project you're going to use it for, and what makes a piece of leather its quality that you're going to look for. We've talked about what to look for on the grain side, what to look for on the flesh side, the difference between things like an English bridal tanning, then how different tanning techniques will affect the suppleness and the hand of the leather as compared to a veg tan, which doesn't bend that easily but takes carving really well. Looking at the back and making sure it's real nice as compared to a loose style grain, how well things will take a dye job when you want to dye. But those are some of the quality things that you'll look for when you go shopping for leather, or you're shopping online and asking somebody to help you pick out your leather for you. So until next time, this is Jeff again from OMG Leatherworks, and make some great dots. Have a great week.